An ancient belief shared by a number of cultures holds that man's mastery of fire, a watershed moment marking the transition from one technological phase to another, is a result of a primordial theft perpetrated by a titanic or telluric figure. In the Book of Enoch, fallen angels are the culprits. Among the North American Indians, the secret of fire is stolen by one or another animal spirit corresponding to the trickster archetype, such as the coyote or the hare. African and Austronesian myths also record a similar tale. Sometimes this understanding occupies a central position in religious life. The lighting of the holy fire that preceded and sanctified all ritual sacrifices during the Vedic period was performed using a special bow drill called a pramantha, which, in Sanskrit, literally translates as to steal. As a consequence, the mastery of fire, along with, by extension, all subsequent technological discoveries, is conditioned, tainted, by a mythical transgression. Of the various accounts of the theft of fire, none is more elaborate or better known than the story of Prometheus. We are indebted to Max Mueller, first of all, for having demonstrated in the 19th century the etymological link between the Titan's name and the word pramantha. Add to this the fact that a similar account of the theft of fire to the story of Prometheus is found in the Rig Veda, and we are left with little doubt as to the Aryan origin of this particular myth. According to Hesiod, Prometheus stole heavenly fire from Zeus, hiding it in a hollow fennel stalk before imparting its secrets to man. For this, as we might expect, he was punished accordingly, chained to a pillar in the Scythian wastes where, being immortal, his cries would echo for eternity. In his Theogony, the poet describes Prometheus' suffering in greater detail. An eagle sent by Zeus to Prometheus' place of exile is said to devour the Titan's liver, which, in a cruel twist of fate, regenerates every night to be eaten anew. We know that the liver, in accordance with the theory of the four humors, was believed to be the source of quintessentially human vices such as greed, anger, and jealousy, and was held to be the seat of yellow bile, the humor associated with the element of fire. Therefore, the depiction of the eagle, a symbol of Aryan regality, devouring the Titan's liver represents in allegorical form the struggle of celestial fire against the inferior chthonic flame. Moreover, the cycle of perpetual regeneration of the liver in the Promethean myth is a sort of prefiguration of the fate of mankind within the fourth yuga, and foreshadows the swallowing of both by the current of becoming. The manner of his bondage, chained to a rock, is similarly prophetic. Comparatists have noted the presence, in other Indo-European traditions, of the theme of a culture hero stealing from the gods and being similarly bound in retaliation. For example, in the Prose Edda, the trickster god Loki is said to have stolen the Brisingamen, a radiant necklace belonging to Freya. Being etymologically derived from the Old Norse Brisingr, meaning fire, the Brisingamen has been variously interpreted as a divine flame, the sun, and even the aurora borealis. Considering that later, once Loki had brought about the death of Balder, the former was chained to a stone by Odin, the parallels between the figures of Loki and Prometheus are fairly clear. In The Problem of Loki, Jan de Vries argues against moralistic interpretations of the Norse trickster's motivations, demonstrating that Loki was, more often than not, compelled to commit his numerous misdeeds, the theft of the Brisingamen among them, by forces beyond his control. After all, Balder's death, according to prophecy, was a necessary prelude to Ragnarok, the end and the renewal of the cosmic order. Through a closer reading of the character, Loki appears not as a malevolent Luciferian being, but rather as an actor simply playing his part. Arguably, the same can be said for Prometheus. Was not the Titan also compelled by the hands of fate to precipitate the end of one cycle so that another may emerge? It is the destiny of both Loki and Prometheus to await in exile until the proper time, Ragnarok for the one, the arrival of Heracles for the other. The view that the Norse thief of the Brisingamen and that of the Olympian flame are homologous figures is reaffirmed when considering Plato's version of the Promethean myth. In the Protagoras, the philosopher states that the divine fire was stolen not from Zeus, but from Hephaestus, and that afterwards his forge was left cold. rendering all the more necessary the heroic restoration of the primordial flame accomplished by Heracles. Hugo Pipping's interpretation of the aurora borealis as a celestial fire extinguished by the theft of the Brisingamen seems to echo Plato's account. Considering that among many Arctic peoples, including the Sami and the Alaskan Tlingit, the Northern Lights are formed by the ascended souls of fallen warriors, the boreal fire stolen by Loki can only be rekindled by heroic death and rebirth, in other words, by human transcendence of the Heraclean type. In the Prose Edda, the battle between Heimdall and Loki over the Brisingamen takes place at Singastein, a rocky island assailed by the waves, with both characters having assumed the forms of seals. However, De Vries convincingly argues that the Singastein, or Singing Stone, is not the location of the battle but its object, implying that somewhere along the way, the stories of the Jewel of the Brisingar and of the Singastein merged into a single tale. In our view, the opposite is more likely, namely that a single myth came to assume various forms, with the agglutination of symbols obscuring its original meaning. First off, the Singing Stone is clearly equivalent to the Stone of Fall of Irish lore, one of the Tuatha De Danann's 4 mythical treasures that was said to speak or sing in the presence of the rightful king. We have already argued that the restoration of the stolen fire is connected to the renewal of the cosmic order, and can only be achieved by those with the proper virtus. Therefore, there is an essential unity between the Brisingamen, the Promethean flame, and the Singing Stone. Stories abound of titanic attempts to claim or reclaim similar grail-like objects failing, with its perpetrators, like Prometheus and Loki, bound in some form or another until the arrival of a worthy aspirant. One final example is found in the Georgian myth of Amirani. Born of an Artemis-like goddess, Amirani is a culture hero similar to Prometheus, credited with teaching the art of metallurgy to mankind. After a series of exploits, including the slaying of serpents and giants, he defies the gods themselves and is also chained to a rock, sometimes to an iron pole, tellingly, in the Caucasus, where he is at the mercy of birds of prey. However, the cornerstone of the Georgian epic is Amirani's voyage and capture of the divine fire personified. He is told of the existence of a maid that lives beyond a magic sea, with a dress made of wondrous silks and gold that sunbeams over it pour. Determined to reach this distant land, Amirani borrows his brother's flying white steed and sets off on his journey. According to this epic, Kamari, the maiden, lived amidst the suns and stars in a castle suspended above the world by a chain. It should be noted that the inaccessible castle, the land beyond the magic sea, as well as the flying white horse are all part of Hyperborean symbolism. Moreover, the first two are not without recalling the Singastein of the Prose Edda, that is, if the Singing Stone is interpreted as a rocky island surrounded by treacherous waters and not an object. Later in the epic, Amirani is subjected to one final challenge by the supreme deity, a feat of strength of the sword and the stone variety. When he proved unable to withdraw a stick from the earth, his lack of the proper virtus was confirmed, and he suffered a fate fitting of a titan. Whether embodied in a maiden, a goddess's necklace, or a celestial forge, the underlying theme is one of a transcendental principle which, if possessed by virtuous hands, leads to the restoration of the primordial state, of which Kamari's golden dress is a clear allusion. Failure is accompanied by a further descent, both of the Titan and of the ages. Of the last of these, he is the herald and the first victim.